Hello again, everyone. I'm Daniel, the cross-cultural nerd, here with another video for you today. Happy Black History Month 2023. For those of you out there who may be unfamiliar with what Black History Month is, Black History Month was started in the United States and has since been picked up by Canada, Ireland, and the United Kingdom. In the United States and in Canada, it's celebrated in February, while in Ireland and the UK, it is celebrated in October. Black History Month is a time when people highlight major black figures and the contributions that black people have made throughout history, since in many majority white countries where black people are present, those contributions have historically been downplayed until recent decades. In this series, I'm going to focus on some names that a lot of people may be less familiar with. Everybody and their cousin, at least in North America, knows about Martin Luther King Jr., Muhammad Ali, Malcolm X, Madam C.J. Walker, Hattie McDaniel, Booker T. Washington, Nat King Cole, Jackie Robinson, and many more. I would like to give some other lesser-known people some time in the limelight here. Furthermore, as a proud Kentuckian, I'm going to focus on black figures either from Kentucky or who had a large part of their life and career in Kentucky. So, let's get started. Now, most people know about Mammoth Cave. It's the longest known terrestrial cave system on the planet, with 420 miles or 680 kilometers of passageways that have been surveyed. It was mined for saltpeter near the entrance in the early 19th century, and it was the object of competing tourist businesses at the turn of the 20th century. It's been referenced multiple times in pop culture, including the indie video game Kentucky Route Zero, and by none other than H.P. Lovecraft in one of his earliest stories. But not a lot outside Kentucky know about the early explorers and guides of the cave. A black Kentucky slave by the name of Stephen Bishop is said to be the first to explore Mammoth Cave past the portions being mined. Until he came along, all traversals of the cave stopped at a spot known as the Bottomless Pit. Stephen Bishop was owned by a man named Franklin Gorin, who purchased the cave and explored the cave in 1838 with Bishop as a guide. Bishop was just 17 years old at the time. As Gorin himself said of Bishop, "I placed a guide in the cave, the celebrated and great Stephen, and he aided in making the discoveries. He was the first person who ever crossed the bottomless pit, and he, myself, and another person whose name I have forgotten were the only persons ever at the bottom of Gorin's dome, to my knowledge. After Stephen crossed the bottomless pit, we discovered all of that part of the cave now known beyond that point. Previous to those discoveries, all interest centered in what is known as the Old Cave, but now many of the points are but little known, although, as Stephen was wont to say, they were grand, gloomy, and peculiar. Stephen was a self-educated man. He had a fine genius, a great fund of wit and humor, some little knowledge of Latin and Greek, and much knowledge of geology, but his great talent was a knowledge of man." Stephen Bishop was also known for an incredible memory and navigation ability. In 1839, a Louisville man named Dr. John Croghan bought Mammoth Cave and all the slaves there, including Bishop, for what today would be a bit over $250,000. Croghan's family would go on to maintain the site until 1926. In 1842, at Croghan's plantation, over the course of 2 weeks, Bishop would draw, from memory, a map of what he then knew of the cave layout. It became known as the Bishop Map and was used for more than 40 years. And unlike many black folks at the time, he got full credit for his work. He also named many of the newly discovered features in Mammoth Cave and discovered the eyeless fish that live in the cave's rivers. He gave tours to many people, including no less than the singer Jenny Lind and the transcendentalist Ralph Waldo Emerson. Stephen Bishop would later be freed by manumission in 1856, but sadly died of tuberculosis a year later at around the age of 36. There were many other black guides at Mammoth Cave around the same time, also initially slaves. Next to Stephen Bishop, the most famous of these were Matt Bransford, Nick Bransford, and Alfred Croghan. Matt and Nick weren't related, but they were owned by the same man, Thomas Bransford. Matt was biracial, the son of Thomas Bransford and a slave woman. He was kept on lease to Mammoth Cave until slavery ended. During his time as a slave, he got married and had children, but 3 of his 4 children got sold away. When he guided the abolitionist John Fowler wrestling on a tour, Wrestling insensitively remarked that he must not miss his children very much, as it was allegedly said that slaves didn't miss them if they were sold. Bransford promptly put him in his place. Matt Bransford kept working as a guide at Mammoth Cave even after he got his freedom. until he died in 1885 at the age of 70 years old. His descendants would continue his legacy working at Mammoth Cave. In the early 1900s, his grandson, Matt Bransford with two T's, made a two-story, 14-room bed and breakfast called Bransford Summer Resort so that black visitors during segregation could have a similarly luxurious experience to that of white visitors when visiting Mammoth Cave. The elder Matt Bransford's great-great-grandson, Jerry Bransford, works as a guide there with the National Park Service today. Nick Bransford worked as a guide for over 50 years and is the subject of the only dedication to an enslaved guide in Mammoth Cave. After most of Matt Bransford's children were sold away, Nick saved up enough money through tips and selling some of the eyeless cave fish and bought his own freedom in 1863, and he would later marry the widow of Stephen Bishop. In the 1870s, he donated land for a black school near the cave, and he was one of the first deacons at Pleasant Union Baptist Church nearby. He continued to work at Mammoth Cave as a paid employee until he died in 1895 at around 75 years old. Alfred Croghan did manual labor around the cave site before joining Bishop and the Bransfords as a guide. Around 1855, he received a glowing review from one John Lorraine Abbott. "I was entirely satisfied with Alfred, with whom I made 4 different journeys through the cave, traveling underground through various avenues more than 50 miles. By the terms of Dr. Croghan's will, Alfred and his wife and children will be free in about 18 months. He is now drawing wages for his services, which, with the liberal presents he receives from visitors, will enable him to make a very fine start in the world. Alfred learned to read when very small, and he astonishes visitors by his use of scientific terms and his knowledge of chemistry and geology. He has visited it with a great many scientific men, has most of the standard works on geology, and is altogether an interesting character. He was anxious to buy Uncle Tom's Cabin and was told that he'd better buy a Bible, so he paid $4.50 for a Bible and bought Uncle Tom too. I cannot do less than recommend all my friends who may visit the cave to try and secure Alfred for a guide." After he was freed through Dr. Croghan's will in 1856, he sued for the right to stay in Kentucky, won, and moved his family to Louisville as a free black man before the Civil War. He died at 47 in 1866 when he was digging a pit for someone and it collapsed in on him. Mammoth Cave has a long legacy of black history. If you have a chance, make sure you go visit and enjoy the cave, but also appreciate the legacy of exploration and community started by Stephen Bishop, Matt Bransford, Nick Bransford, Alfred Croghan, and more. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. If you have any questions or comments, please put them in the comment section below. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Look at my link tree and follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Mastodon, Instagram, co-host, and Hive. Once again, I'm Daniel, the Cross-Cultural Nerd. Have a great day. Happy Black History Month. I'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.